Hey, hope you're having a great day. So today I have for you some fantasy standalone recommendations. So if you're not looking for like a 12 book series, 6 book long, heavy series, but you still want the fantasy element, I have some great book suggestions for you. Today we're going to be going through 7 of some of my favorites. So to start it out strong, Guarded Treasure. So think the movie The Mummy with Brendan Fraser. I think it's from like 1999, that kind of vibe. It's set in like the 1920s. There's mystery, there's a magic. It's similar in the atmosphere of what's happening, but there's actually a lot more magic to this storyline, and it's actually really, really fun. It does have the tiniest amount of spice that I was not expecting, especially when you look at the cover. You don't think, oh, there's going to be spice in it. There's a little spice. So just to forewarn you on that, but this is one that I will say I think about all the time, and I already read it this year. I had read it last year, and I already reread it again this year. That's how much I love this book. It is so fun. It's on Kindle Unlimited, and it's a really, really good time. So think 1920s, mummies, Egypt. They're trying to look into ancient Egypt, and she's trying to step as the main character. She's trying to, of course, make her step into the world because nobody takes her seriously because it's the 1920s. Nobody believes a woman. And so it's a really good book. I highly suggest it. So again, Guarded Treasure, for sure, for sure, for sure. Read this one. It's super fun. It's a quick read. It's sassy. Again, it's a standalone, so you don't have to worry about any other books in the series. It's kind of one and done, but it finishes really well. Bride by Allie Hazelwood. Okay, so Allie Hazelwood is known for her more rom-com, slightly steamy, like women in STEM books. This one is pure fantasy. This one, I was surprised by her, but it's one of my all-time favorite reads. It's good. It's a good book. So, main character is a vampire. She is like the daughter of somebody very high up in the vampire coven, and in this world, the humans know about the supernaturals, and there's kind of an uneasy truce between humans, werewolves, and vampires. Well, something happens along on the human side, and the vampires and werewolves are very nervous because, of course, the humans could overtake them very easily because there's not as many of the supernaturals as there are for humans. So the vampires and werewolves go into a bit of like a truce, and in doing so, the female main character, who's the daughter of like one of the high in the coven, is elected to then marry the alpha of the werewolf coven or clan, whatever you want to call it. And so it's very, very interesting, like the political round. And of course, these species hate each other. Like, they're not meant to be together. And of course, this arranged marriage, they've never met before, complete opposites. And then also, what I thought was interesting about this one specifically is the female main character, her best friend had gone missing, and she doesn't know why. And it somehow had gotten connected to the alpha werewolf. So that's kind of why she had taken on the role as well of like marrying him and trying to figure it out. So it's a really interesting thing. It's a lot steamier than I thought it was going to be, especially like, I mean, Allie Hazelwoods have a little bit of spice in them, but I think this is on a whole other level. But this was really good. I really liked it. Of course, vampires, werewolves, what can go wrong with that one, truly? But it was really good. I highly suggest it. Got a little bit of spice in it, but it's definitely well worth the time. Next, Healer to the Ash King. Okay, I think about this all the time. I don't know what it is about this book that I love so much, but I literally think about it all of the time. So think Hunger Games, but with Fae, or well, here, let's pair it this way. Hunger Games and The Bachelorette with Fae equals this book. That is exactly how I imagine it in my head, truly. So in this world, there's like an evil Fae king, yada, yada, yada. He's the bad guy, Shadow Daddy vibes. And every like certain amount of years, there's like this trial to be won. And since he had just come into power not that long ago, he needs a wife. And what they do for this specifically is they kind of have all of these like Fae High Lord's daughters come into an arena like the Hunger Games, and they pretty much fight to the death to then whoever wins is going to be the wife of the new Fae King, and she becomes queen. So the main character, the female main character, she is from like the backwoods water country. She has water powers, which is very, very rare, and it's super important for her little small village. Well, she also has these healing abilities, which are needed in order for her to attend to all of these women during this trial. And so she then is pretty much told she has to go and is conscripted under the king's service. And so she's pulled from her little world and is thrust into this big dimension of all these fancy people and things. And she's from pretty much nowhere, and she has to go and attend to all this princess's woos and dreams, and she's just not into it. But things turn around. Her perception of the Fae King and who he really is really changes, and it is a bit of a romance, but it's actually a really interesting story. Again, it's a standalone, so it's a really quick read. It is part of like a bunch of standalone series, but none of them are truly interconnected. They're all just in the same realm. So I think this is technically like book 4 or 5, but don't worry about that. This is like so good. You don't need to read any of the other books beforehand. This is truly a standalone. So good. Again, Hunger Games plus Bachelorette equal this book. So good. So good. Okay, the next one is The Fake Mate. So this is by Lena Ferguson. She is quickly becoming one of my all-time favorite authors. I'm not joking. This was a really good book. I read one of her other books that's called The Nanny. That one's really good too, but that's not a fantasy. That's more of like a rom-com. But this one is set in modern day time. So it is about two werewolves. They're both doctors in the same hospital, and they've never really crossed paths with each other. And the female main character, she is like, her family really wants her to finally settle down and like get her life together. You know, she's a doctor, and like being a doctor, she just wants to work. She doesn't really worry about any personal details and things like that. So she then like was talking with her grandma or her mom or somebody on the phone, and she's like, no, I have somebody, I'm dating somebody. And then she turns to see the first person she's like talking about, and it's this other werewolf who's the same doctor in the building. And she gives them the mom the name and like, oh yeah, you're gonna meet him, okay, bye. And he's just like, excuse me. Now he is an alpha, and so again, he's a bit of a lone alpha, so it's a little different dynamic between this. And he is, of course, getting a little older, and of course his family wants him to settle down. Also, there's the issue of, with him being an alpha, you're more dangerous not being mated in this world. And so he's just like, why don't we just have this fake relationship? And both of them agree to this. And so this fake relationship between these two then slowly blossoms into this really cool love triangle, or not triangle, just this love of, it kind of started out fake, but then it got really real. And it's really good because he's dark, he's broody, he doesn't really like other people. And she's like this bright, sunshiny, happy-go-lucky girl. And it's a really fun read, and I really enjoyed it. There is quite a bit of spice, but I actually really like the dynamic of the werewolves, and there's a little bit of mystery to it, of course, and of like things that are to be revealed, and I really liked it, so I'd highly suggest it. The next one is Not Acadia. So this is for my dark romance lovers / dark academia lovers. So this one is, I will say, a little bit on the creepy crawly end. So the female main character, her mom dies of some mysterious illness of like worms coming out of her, and they kind of like make her go insane, and she ends up dying and things like that. But it's under mysterious illness. And when the autopsy comes back, it says that she offed herself. But that's not true, because the daughter was there for this the whole time. That is not what happened at all. And nobody seems to know what's going on, and none of the symptoms are coming up on Google, like, or anything like that. And like, she doesn't understand why. So fast forward several years later, the female main character is like working full time, and she's going to school like in the afternoons. She's kind of living, unfortunately, a really shitty life. And she's trying to become like the doctor or like researcher route, just to figure out what happened to her mom and study this disease. Well, she had put in a paper in one of her classes who had like sparked the interest of the professor, who then sent it to this like mysterious university. She then gets accepted into this university for a full scholarship, and all of a sudden this university is the only one to know what happened to her mom and what this disease is, when nobody else knows. So apparently this disease is only ever on this island where this elite of the elite, like, a university is at. And so she goes, and she's like, number one, I want to find out what this disease is. I want to learn more about it and what happened actually to my mom. So there's this big mystery about who she is, what happened to the mom, and then of course there's like found family trope. It's very interesting. And of course there's this dark, broody professor who is definitely not even morally gray. He is gray. He is gray. But then he ends up kind of falling for her, and she kind of falls for him. There's this big mystery. It is a little creepy crawly, so if you're not on that edge, that's okay. It was a little creepy for my taste, because I'm not a scary movie person, and I don't like thriller books or anything like that. But this one, I really enjoyed. It was really fun. It's a fun ride. It's very intense. It's not like a light, fun, happy read. This is an intense read, and it's good, but this one is for the dark academia lovers, for sure. The next one is My Roommate is a Vampire. This is a fun rom-com time. It really, really is. She is kind of like a broke artist. She can't kind of find the job that she went to school for, some type of like artistry degree. And of course, it's just in art, you don't always make money. And so she's really struggling kind of find her feet. Well, she ends up finding a place on like Craigslist for like $200 a month in like prime real estate in New York. Okay. Or was it New York? No, Chicago. I think they're in Chicago. Yeah. Prime real estate, Chicago. Okay. And she's just kind of like, what's the catch? What's the catch? And she goes and meets this guy, and he's like super great and ends up moving into this. Well, comes to find out he's a vampire. And something happened to him, and he's pretty much been asleep for the last 100 years. So this full century, he's like come out and has like no idea what happened to the world. And he was really looking for somebody to help walk him through these steps. And it kind of blossoms from a friendship to a relationship. And it's just so funny, like his view of the world, because of course, like, he wasn't awake, so he doesn't understand the little nuances that have come on about the times. And so him just kind of learning about these things, and it just ends up being super, super cute. It's a super fun, quick read. It's something that it's not super heavy, so you can sit down and then pick it back up if you want to. It's not something that you're going to be completely like absorbed by, but it's actually really, really fun. I think there is technically like one super spicy scene, but that's really it. There's like a couple kissing scenes, but nothing major. But it's super fun, cute rom-com vibe. And then the last one, I will say, I just recently read this, and I am like hooked. I am hooked on this series already, and it is The Vampire's Mail Order Bride. This is the epitome of a fantasy rom-com. No joke, one of the best books I think will be of my 2024, but so freaking fun. Oh my gosh. So the main character in New York, she's like a server, waitress, things like that. And of course she works underneath a guy she is said to be a part of like the Italian mafia or like mob, something along those lines. So she didn't think actually would happen. And one night she had like happened to leave her phone or something at the restaurant. And so she goes back super late at night, ends up witnessing a murder of like her boss murdering somebody else, and she got it all on camera. And he knew it was her because she actually made some noise like on her way out. And so she's running for her life, just happens to go into the shop while she's running. And it's kind of like unsure like what's going on, but it's like a mail order service for brides. And she was like kind of getting helped, and one of the like receptionist lady or whatever was busy, and she had like walked away, and she picked up the first file and saw that like this person was going to go down to Georgia and marry this person. And so she's like, that's my way out. So she had called the lady who was supposed to go down and marry this guy, and she's like, oh, sorry, not the right match. We'll call you next time, like acting like she was the receptionist. So then she takes her place. So she grabs all her things and jets down to Georgia into this beautiful, the town is called Nocturne Falls. And this town celebrates Halloween 365 days a year. Yeah, perfect, right? And it is meant for, of course, all sizes, shapeshifters, supernatural live here. And of course, she doesn't know that because she's a human. So she goes down there, and the whole point of this like mail order service was really for my understanding, a lot of supernaturals and like how they get to know each other, and of course everything will go well. And so she shows up and is nothing like he believes it to be. And it was an arranged marriage that the male main character, he was not looking for a marriage at all. Like his grandma had set this up. And so he's a bit broody, he's a bit secluded, he's not really into life, he's several hundred years old, and he really just wants to be left alone. And then in comes this like feisty, fun, like she's just trying to escape. She's just pretty much running for her life, and she's like, what could go wrong? What's the likelihood I'm actually going to marry this guy? Zip. Well, things happen. They end up really getting to know each other, and they end up slowly falling in love. Well, it wasn't really slowly. My only issue I had with this book is it is so fast-paced. I mean, things happen within days, which is like fine, but it's a very fast-paced book, but it's super, super fun. It's funny. I love the main character. It's hilarious. She's feisty. It's fun. She's willing to stick up for herself. And it's just a really fun, quick read. I think there's actually ending up like 10 books in this series, and they're all interconnected standalones. But this is the first one in the series, and I just read it a few days ago. I read the second book about like another character in the town. It was about a werewolf, but this one is so fun, so funny. I highly suggest it. I would read it again and again and again. So good. And that's it. Those are all of the books that I have for some fantasy standalone recommendations. I really hope you guys like this one. I will definitely be making more suggestions to some of my favorite reads, and I think the standalones are so fun. I love fantasy. It's one of my favorite genres, but I think that it's hard to find a good fantasy standalone novel, so I'm going to share mine as I go along in this beautiful reading journey I call life, and I will see you guys on the next one.